Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And thank you, Marty White. Welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're going to talk cars today. I'll take your questions and do my best to answer. I'll give you information that you can use to keep your car in your garage and out of mine or your local garage, wherever you may be tuned in. This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We're celebrating 24 years and loving every minute of it. We'll open the phones, and Miss Kim will take your calls at 888-227-2546. I'll give you the number again, 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by Stant Corporation, makers of the Superstat, that's right, that I talk about. Reach for the thermostat that professionals install, and that's what I install in our Car Clinic service shop. Learn more about the Superstat and Stant's entire collection of aftermarket caps and thermostats at stant.com. Also proud to say this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by Power Frame Grid Technology. Batteries may all look the same from the outside, but it's what's inside that really matters. Get a battery with the technology to be stronger and more dependable. Look for not a Power Frame battery. Look for the Power Frame logo on your next battery. Learn more and compare the Power Frame Grid Technology with standard book mold technology at powerframe.com. Your calls when I come back, and we're going to be talking with Stan from Ohio about computers in your car. Let's take a question from the Car Clinic inbox. Here's Charlie from North Carolina.
Bobby, based on your recommendation, I've been using K&N air filters and love the convenience and cost savings of just washing and re-oiling them instead of having to buy new ones. Last week, while cleaning my air filter, I noticed it has some small holes in the top of the cotton right at the folds. You don't see the cotton layers, only the screen. The filter is only a year old, but it's supposed to last 1,000,000 miles, right?
Charlie, a hole in a K&N filter is very, very rare, so I checked with K&N as to potential causes. Sounds like you may have been using compressed air to help dry your filter. Compressed air is a no-no with a K&N filter. Definitely stop using the filter, and I recommend you contact K&N. Email K&N's fantastic customer service team at tech@knfilters.com. They'll probably ask you to send in the filter or a photo so they can address your concern. They'll work quickly to get you and your vehicle back on track. Learn more at knfilters.com. That's knfilters.com. When it comes to your car battery, you expect it to work. Turn the key and go. Thanks to PowerFrame Grid technology, you can count on your battery to be there start after start. Batteries with PowerFrame Grid technology provide superior cranking power with up to 70% better electrical flow than other grid designs. Look for the PowerFrame logo on the outside of your next battery. It means true strength on the inside. Visit PowerFrame.com to find a retailer near you. That's PowerFrame.com. What can open and close hundreds of times a day on your vehicle? Your vehicle's thermostat, which performs two critical jobs: accelerates engine warm-up and regulates engine operating temperature. With so much at stake, like engine wear, fuel economy, emissions, and cold weather drivability, choose a thermostat professional installers choose. Stant. Stant's Superstat is premium grade and features a heavier gauge stainless steel housing and larger heat motor for optimal temperature control. For more Superstat advantages, visit Stant.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Like Shakespeare, we ask the question, what's in a name? Ours is pretty blah. We're Geico, not to be confused with Gecko, a small tree lizard. And no, Geico doesn't have a sister company named Girlco. So, in the absence of a perfect name, focus group tested for hipness, we offer car insurance at a fair price. In 15 minutes, you could save 15%. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Our name may not be cool, but saving money always is. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
I tend to put things off. For example, I put off getting a home equity line of credit for a while. Then one day, when I should have been doing my laundry, I went to LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form and got 4 offers back within hours. Then I chose the line of credit that was right for me. Who knows? I may even get around to using it someday.
When banks compete, you win at LendingTree.com. Equal housing opportunity. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Well, good morning. I hope that you had a great week, and this is it's a special weekend. Of course, I always think that weekends are special because of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I love to talk cars, but it really is a special weekend because it's football time again. And I can tell you, I had the opportunity to be in Gainesville, Florida yesterday. Of course, I was there Thursday and Friday, drove home yesterday, and rain on and off was very interesting. Very interesting because I'm very in tune with how my car runs. Now, the last time that we inspected my automobile was when it had 24,900 miles. I was going to go another trip, and I said, well, it's time to change the oil because I'd been 4,000 miles, or 4,900. So at 25,000, I changed it. Well, the car just turned 28.5, and as I was cruising down the road, running, at 79 miles per hour, the range came, and when it did, the cars lined up in front of me just stacked up. I mean, it's like, really? And I don't drive behind a car, folks, and nor should you. I don't mean that literally. I drive behind the car that's in front of the car, in front of the car, in front of the... In other words, I look at the 5th or 6th or whatever my vision will allow of the cars in front of me so I can see what's up the road in front of me. I have a lot of admiration. I've never been in the position, nor will I be, to drive or ride with a NASCAR racer. I'm not much of a rider. I'm a, control freak. But I can only imagine at 200 miles an hour down at the Daytona track, and by the way, hi folks in Daytona and Ormond Beach, I can only imagine what it's like at 200 miles an hour, and you're drafting someone 6 or 8 inches off, and then there's a crash ahead. You have no clue. Do you go for the light? Don't go near the light, or you go for the smoke. Bottom line, on several occasions I had to hit the brakes, and I don't mean jam on the brakes, but certainly to bring the car down from a 79/80 down to 68 or 70. And I learned this about my car. It needs front brakes. It did not need front brakes before I left to go to Gainesville. Perhaps I didn't have the opportunity to use them. How can I tell? The gritty feel at high speeds under light pedal. I don't mean a pulsation. I just mean it wasn't silky smooth where the brakes would halt the car. It was a, I know you shouldn't do that to a microphone, but that's what it felt to me. So if you're driving down the highway and occasionally, you get spooked by something, or an animal runs in front of you, and you don't jam the brakes on, but you put them on to slow the car, not stop the car, but to slow the speed from X down to X minus, and you feel not necessarily a vibration. You just feel something that wasn't there before. Then have your car inspected. Enough about that. Let's go to Ohio. We're going to welcome Stan in. And recently, let me set the stage here. Recently, I don't know, it's been a month or two ago, we had a caller, Victor, who is an occasional caller from Moses Lake, Washington, to call and ask about computers. He always asks the best questions. Always ask hard questions as well, which I guess that's the best ones. And he asked about computers and those sorts of things. And then I had several conversations with you, those of you out there, and we all agreed to one thing. We don't know a lot about the computers. So Stan, and I've received tons of email about binary codes and what have you. All I know is that a 2000 model automobile had 1 million lines of code. A luxury car with a lot of computer. Today, all I know is that my car, which is a 2013 with loaded, has 100 million lines of code. With that said, Stan, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
100 million. Man, those are big numbers, aren't they?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like the national debt. I mean, a billion, a trillion. How far is it to Mars? Hey, pretty
you got
soon,
it.
Who was it that said? Never mind. It's about the money. Pretty soon you're talking about some real money there. But we're talking about some very sophisticated controls of some very sophisticated mechanical. And Stan, I'm going to turn the mic to you. But before I do, I will tell you, in the early days, in the early 80s, in fact, 80 and a half, Buick was the first vehicle to have an electronically controlled carburetor. And that's where the world changed for the independent service shop, because we did not have the training, we didn't have the cars, the experience. Everything was foreign to us that we touched. And the very idea that you could take a non-living part like a computer and control an engine, which to me was a living thing, it was ludicrous. And yet, now that I understand it, it is a fabulous world we live in. What do you think?
I completely agree with you that it's a fabulous world. I just tried in my thinking to add something that I picked up in my education. As you recall, I'm an electronic engineer and did computer applications for production machinery, and all the way from learning at the very, very basics. And I thought I'd tell you some things that I've learned to see if it helps.
Okay, the mic is all yours.
The line of code is a basic instruction to the computer to do something. Now, there's a lot of variation now, but a line of code could contain an 8-bit word or a 16-bit word or a 32 or 64-bit word, depending on the computer. And if you have a little word, it takes a lot more lines of code than if you have a big word. And those are basic in the architecture of the computer, how big a word that it operates on. So some of these numbers of lines of code mean different things to different computers. The standard for an awful long time was an 8-bit word, and it took an awful lot of those to do what you can do now with one 64-bit word. Now, perhaps that's a little confusing, but a line of code, it does things like provides instructions to get the value of an input, compare that to a set value, and if it's out of bounds, check the engine light. Or, put the check engine light on.
Okay,
and,
so let me ask this question then,
right.
because we're talking about how a computer is connected. It's the anatomy of an automobile's chassis or architecture. most sensors use, as I understand, either changes in resistance, capacitance, or pulse counting via analog to digital interface, and that conveys information to the controller, which is the computer. The most common sensors use a resistor, and this started back in the early days, whose value changes with heat or pressure. This part I know because we were the first Bosch authorized service center in 1986, and in school I went to Oak Park, Illinois, to school there, the Bosch school, and I knew that an engine thermostat, not a thermostat, but the engine temperature sensor had X resistance at X temperature, and as the temperature changes, that resistance changes because it used a thermistor, and depending on the temperature or as with other resistors, changes in pressure, it will change the value, varying the voltage which the computer reads and makes changes because it moved. In other words, I send you 5-volt reference signal, and you move your arm an inch, and it takes 2 volts to move the arm, and you send back 3 volts. I know that 1 inch of your arm's movement requires 2 volts. So if I know that, you can move 1 inch and 1/1000th, and I know that you've moved because you'll require 2 plus X volts. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. There's just 2 parts in there that you also need to know, which is it has to take that analog signal and convert it to a digital signal so it can understand it. And then it does this comparison stuff that I talked about earlier.
Understood.
So it takes that analog signal and makes a digital word out of it. Then when the computer steps along and checks the value of that, then it can make a decision. Is that inbound? Do I need to do something based on what that number is, based on the code that's there?
And
there, that makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense, because herein lies the problem, because this is where problems come from, and I'll tell you how sensitive this is. I had an ABR test performed a day before yesterday, and that's called an auditory brainstem response. In other words, it's by Shands in Gainesville, at Shands. An ABR, auditory brainstem response. And what that effectively sounded like was, I don't know if you've ever had an MRI, but it can be very disconcerting, that tack, 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 tack. Well, you multiply that times, imagine yourself watching the tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock of the Big Ben clock in London, and magnify or multiply the speed 5 times in one ear while white noise is introduced in the other. And here's what this has to do with cars. They cleaned your forehead and parts of your face and temples with an abrasive paste, so that the sensor gets a reading, and then before they ever start the test, they use a capacitance test to see how good the connection is between your face and that sensor. How does that connect with cars? When Stan and I'll come back, I'll tell you how. History is full of automotive breakthroughs, like Henry Ford's Model T in 1908 and flashing turn signals in 1935. Now, Shell is proud to introduce another automotive breakthrough, Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline, featuring an innovative additive package with patented technology. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline protects against all 3 main types of engine performance threats: gunk, corrosion, and wear. All gasolines have minimal amounts of cleaning agents required by EPA, but this may not be sufficient to prevent buildup of deposits. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline provides unbeatable protection against gunk and corrosion, plus superior protection against wear. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline, proven in industry-standard tests and recommended by BMW M Series. Don't give your engine just any premium gasoline. Choose a breakthrough. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Learn more at shell.com/US. You hear me talking about General Tires all the time. Quiet ride, great performance, innovative technology. They're fantastic tires. I know from personal experience. After 100 years in business, they must be doing something right. Well, now's a great time to buy your next set of Generals with the General Tire Making Trails promotion. You can receive up to a $70 prepaid Visa card with a purchase of 4 qualifying General tires between now and September 11th. Learn more about the Making Trails promotion at generaltire.com/promotions.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back. I want to invite you to call. You don't have to be a technician or a mechanic or a computer guru. We're talking with Stan from Ohio, who's had experience in that field, and also he's had experience in racing as well. So it's a combination of automotive. What is important for you to realize and to understand and to appreciate is that the very safety items on your automobile, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later because Jim, our car clinic reporter, is also in the queue, and you're going to hear some information that I think really is telling of the industry, and some other information that we'll have to wait and see what he has to say. But the bottom line is, when you push that button to put that window down, you just click it and it goes down all the way by itself. How does it know when to stop? I mean, really, how does it know when to stop? Well, it sees that when the motor gets to the bottom and the window is gone as far as it can go, like any door, you push a door to close. Once it goes to the closed position, you can push and increase the pressure on the push. The door's not going to go anywhere, but you can tell by the pressure. So the computer sees the current draw that is increased because the motor that drives, and the computer hooks the battery to the motor that drives the window down or up increases pressure once it gets to its location, and it's wherever it's all the way down, all the way up, and it sees the current draw increases and says enough and shuts off the current. And that's how things work in cars. So when you push the button to put the driver's window down, you're at the driver's position. You have nothing to do with that window, and what you're pushing goes to a body control module located somewhere in the car, and the body control module says, oh, the driver, Jim or Jack or Jerry or Mary, you want the window down? Allow me, and I'll put the window down. What is so fantastic about this is that the functions of the car are entwined, interlaced, so that all of the car safety factors, i.e. the doors know when to unlock in an emergency situation, when the airbag knows when to explode at the right time, with the timing is crucial. Okay, enough of that. We're talking with Stan, and we're talking about the lines of code and computers, and that's just simply switch off and on devices. And to that, the problems that we have, and I was speaking of the cleaning of the skin that was done to my forehead recently as I was being tested for hearing disorder. Really? Hearing? Me? So the bottom line is I have selective hearing. That's a disease that all men get when they say I do. So the bottom line, corrosion in an automobile and loose resistive ground connections are a major problem with this type of sensor because the computer has no way of knowing if it's reading a true value for the resistor or the additional values of a corroded connection. Stan, what do you say about that?
Bobby, I think you're right to the heart of it, and now you just explained an awful lot of what you do in your service business, which is to get all of the connections, all of the inputs to the computer to be correct, rather than just blaming the computer all the time.
Definitely. I think computers
I failed to start off by telling you how much I appreciate what you do on Saturday mornings.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I've learned an awful lot from you as I look around the various things that I do, and I also generally plan an activity to do while I've got the radio on for a couple hours, like do some painting or car maintenance or something like that. So it's added a lot of interesting structure to my day.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and what we do and what I try to do is just share the experiences. And I thought you'd have thunk by now that everything had been invented. You know that old story. Everything's been invented. May as well close down the patent office. Well, Bosch filed 3,500 patents a year. 3,500. I mean, it's unbelievable. No, they didn't file. They actually received 3,500 patents, and then that specific year was 2013. I'm not sure what they did in 14, but they're not slacking company. So I'm sure they're just like with all of the data, the high OEM suppliers, and that same thing can be said for Delphi. Delphi, just completed their, across the country, I said just a month or so ago, just completed their autonomous car. Now there's a total control of the vehicle in its environment with computers. How does that work?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, though, is how computers might malfunction and cause problems. And I love your example of that you had on your Dodge you cannot operate the rear door remotely, but until you took the battery cable off and reset it.
That was a van, the Chrysler van that had a body control module. That I lost all the doors. I lost the dash. The dash didn't work. So, folks, if you've got a dash that is totally black, this was a town and country, but it doesn't have to be a TNC. It can be any kind of car, and yet the vehicle runs, but you don't see any lights. You don't know any oil pressure, temperature, speedometer, and nothing works. It doesn't mean that cluster, which that's the part that behind the steering wheel, is defective. It could well, but it probably means the body control module that operates that cluster. And what had happened, Stan, and the point that you referred to, was that the battery went down, and I jumped it, and the body control module saw that the voltage went over the cliff. It went from 12x to 5. And the body control module was programmed to say, when you have a failure of battery voltage that is a drop like that, it must mean there's a short to ground. It means that the battery cable has gone straight to ground, because nothing, oil pressure, blood pressure, nothing. If your heart stopped beating, you would lose your blood pressure, but it would be a cumulative loss, albeit fast. You just can't fall off the cliff. You can't go from zip to off instantaneously. And when that happened, the body control module was positioned and programmed to disconnect from the car, and it did. And by golly, I was going to replace the body control module, and in the meantime, while I was locating the body control module, my technician put a new battery in, and when it rebooted, they joined hands, they initiated each other, and all was well. And it saved me, because we were in a crunch for time, as we always are with our cars.
Well, the initialization programs are stimulated by various kinds of things. Some of them you can do with your analysis tools, and some of them you have to do with power off and power on. And just one little bit in that computer can, on some systems with some programs, absolutely cause the computer not to be able to function at all. that's one of the tasks of programmers, is to make the computers increasingly more robust to having some dramatic thing like the battery going down, that it can recover. And also that's the function of your good service manuals and your ASE certified techs, is to keep on top of this stuff so they understand what does it take to reboot. Many of us are familiar with our home computers requiring rebooting periodically, and that's pretty analogous to what happens in your car.
Well, I want to share this with you, and then, and folks, the phones are open, and also Jim is in the queue, so we do want to go to Jim, but Stan, I want to share with you that because we are performing more reprogramming for our car clinic service pre-repair customers in-house than ever before, what we have just done. Now, I bragged about this a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, that we had completely converted our facility from copper wire to fiber, and actually we in a partnership project. Well, I say partnership. The Cox is a vendor, but they are a great company to deal with and have really been forthcoming. We converted our complete facility, including the very voice that you hear and the reprogramming of our customers' cars, over fiber. And the speed of which that we do that, the consistency and the dependability, not only allows me to reach many stations across the nation and globally, and I'll wave to the Watch Bobby Live folks on Watch Bobby Live, but it also means that we have better connectivity with our customers' cars when we're connecting the car to the OEM and reprogramming an onboard computer at the speed that no one else can match, because we have, let's just say it's 10 megs, we have 10 megs down. Well, a lot of internet speed is 10 megs down. We have a dedicated, never run out, 10 up and 10 down. And what is so significant about that, we have redundancy. And I won't go into how that works, except that hats off to Cox for doing a fantastic job. We're the only automotive service shop probably within 500 miles, including new car dealers, that has all fiber feeding our technicians' stalls and feeding reprogramming of our customers' cars, and the network is just part of that. So, Stan, in closing, I thank you for your explanation and for your input, and also for your kind words today.
Well, you're quite welcome. I hope that helped a little bit. It can be confusing getting the cars to do all the wonderful things they do today, is because we've been able to get programmable devices in there and make them reliable. And I appreciate you who have to go in there and dig it out when it doesn't work. So thanks again. Have a good day.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Yeah, and folks, and he's right. The bottom line, and I can simplify, just like your ABS system, speed and position sensors are nothing more than on and off switches, which can take the form of mechanical contacts, changes in the magnetic field or light using level converting interfaces. Now, what does that mean? It just means that the computer counts the pulses and compares them to an internal clock and determines change of frequency. What does that mean? You got 4 speedometers on your 4 wheels of your 4-wheeler, and if you nail the brakes and one speed of one wheel goes from 60 miles an hour to 0, and the rest are going 60, 58, 55, 50, then that computer instantly knows that right rear wheel is locked up. What does it do? It pulsates that brake specifically and selectively for that right rear wheel. So whenever you're in a pulse situation or a panic situation, nail that brake pedal and steer that car where you want to go. And the computer and the StabiliTrak, which is another part of the ABS and the engine control module, it's the computer on board that measures the pitch and yaw and the speed and the environment and helps you to be a better, safer driver. How fantastic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic, back with Jim from Michigan on more information about airbags. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. We Americans are outspoken when it comes to choice, whether it's menu selections or political elections. So why not at the pump? E15 and E85 provide an American-sourced alternative for vehicle model years 2001 and later and flex fuel vehicles, respectively. Opponents claim that drivers will be confused at the pump. This objection is confusing, as drivers have historically chosen among at least 3 different octanes and diesel. In fact, studies show that Americans do want a choice at the pump by a 3-to-1 margin. In the future, choices will be technology-enabled by innovative blender pumps, which will energize retailers and empower consumers to tailor their fueling options to include the ethanol level best suited to their need. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association. Drive to ethanolrfa.org.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Good night, Prevotella. Good night, Actinomyces. Good night, Streptococcus.
Germs, millions of them. They've been building up in your mouth all day, and some of them can even lead to the gum disease gingivitis. Say goodnight with Listerine. Just 30 seconds of Listerine before bed kills germs, even germs that can cause gingivitis. Use Listerine every night and go to sleep with a healthier mouth. See your dentist. Use as directed when brushing and flossing aren't enough.
If you're familiar with the Kulsiford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulsiford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemurs. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I want to welcome you if you're just tuned in. A great day. It's a little technical there at one point as Stan and I were going through some computer controls of your automobiles, but rest assured that it's all designed not to confuse. It's all designed to make your car a safer machine and to perform better. And to that end, that means from bumper to bumper, the cars that you buy today are superior to the cars that you sold or you drove yesterday, even though you may hear more about recalls. And in that vein, let's take a call. And joining us now is Jim from Michigan, Car Clinic reporter. Good morning, Jim. Thanks for holding. You are a patient man.
Well, I try to be with a nice guy like you. It can't be any other way.
Thank you. You always know the right thing to say to me, but now I'll just turn the mic over to you. What's up today?
Okay, what's up today? I want to talk about General Motors being the first U.S. automaker to build a car in China and sell it in the U.S. market, which I am shocked that that's going to happen. We have enough problems with fair trade. The other countries get the fair trade when they manufacture a car to bring their car in and profit, and we do not. Now we're turning around, and right near the union negotiation time, telling the employees, other employees in China are building a car they're going to ship from China.
So let me understand
that.
this.
To me is amazing.
So what you're saying is that GM is going to build a Buick in China, and
correct.
Then China is going to import that car for sale into the U.S., and that will that make GM more money and cut out jobs? It sounds like to me that's what the plan is.
Well, that to me is what it is, too, because if you create a new car, why can't we have the new car made here and even if we have to ship it, get a fair tariff where our American employees continue to have their jobs. Because every time I turn around, I see a new model coming out. They're laying off employees for a couple of months, and even though they make good money before that layoff, a layoff is not pleasant to take in one's lifestyle.
Well, did not you bitchin' a couple of weeks ago on another report that Ford was going to build another plant in Mexico?
I did indeed, and it seems with that trend, the statement in this article where it says we're the first, well, maybe it's not another across the ocean country, but in Mexico, that's out of our country.
So don't you think that the timing, this is, there's some connection between the fact that the UAW is going to renew their contracts, and now all of a sudden we're getting, I don't know if these are rumors or these are plans, actual plans that have been in the, and you and I, nor anyone outside closed doors would ever know what really is going on behind the closed doors. And that's the boardroom. That's but they are a publicly traded company, so you can find reports. My question to you, for your opinion and your input, sir, is that is this a real plan to do what they announced they're thinking of doing, or is it just another way to soften and give them the power hand with regard to the UAW contract renewals?
Well, on the questioning of asking them direct, they would not deny that it's going to happen. So if you don't deny it, to me, I'm going to take it. It will happen.
I agree. That's very interesting. I want to tell you what I heard on the radio just this morning on the way to the studio. One of our affiliates, in fact, this happens to be a very powerful station, some 60 miles from Pensacola's FM Talk 106.5 in Mobile, Alabama, and the host and a caller were talking about Donald Trump, who had visited Mobile recently. As I said earlier, I've been on the road, so I don't know what's going on, in my town and surrounding. But I think it was interesting. He didn't go into what he was talking about, but what little I've heard, Donald Trump talked about jobs, and of course everyone running for politics ultimately talks about jobs, but he also went on to say that maybe Michigan might lose some jobs, which would also allow better contracts, which would ultimately increase the jobs because the pendulum has to swing. Now that's a short version of what I felt that I read from a video that I watched or a clip that I watched on television, and what you've said, and now what I'm hearing from you with regard to the Chinese-made Buick imported to the U.S. And you and I know, and folks, just for your information, China doesn't have to pay. The tariff coming into the country is nothing. And
we've got to straighten that out.
That's a whole new. That's another. I'm glad I'm not in that field, because I don't know how you could ever. How do you change those things? That's in the. I know it's politics, but how do you change? You must make changes, because we live in a global economy now. We don't live in a Michigan economy or a Florida economy or a Washington State or California economy. We live in a world economy. Exactly right. What else you have?
Okay, Bobby, and as for example, the negotiation with the union, with all three major companies in Michigan, Ford, Chrysler, and GM, if they don't consolidate and have a pool for their health insurance for the three car companies, in the next 2 years, the car insurance for their employees is going to go up 42%. Now, with the car pool, they can avoid that 42% increase, and that would be beneficial to the employees, both salary and hourly. But at the same time, they're asking them, where they had not been making a contribution, to make one toward it. But if my own insurance went up 42% now that I'm retired, I have to bite the bullet and just pay it. I have medical problems I've got to be taken care of. And the problem is right now our economy is in bad economic problems from the stock market yesterday. We can't ask for more.
So let me understand, just briefly restating, what you're saying is that what the premise is that the Ford, GM, and Chrysler, the big three, which are back now, I don't know if the AMA, the American Automobile Manufacturers Association, that's another story, but that used to be an organization that went away when Mercedes-Benz bought Chrysler. But you're saying that the big three are wanting to
Want to
pool the
contracts
automotive.
together
This is
so that they won't have a
this is your
increase in
collision. This is
insurance.
your collision insurance on your automobile, your regular automobile insurance, and then offer that to their employees for a piece of, and the employees pay a piece of that. Well, they don't supply that now. Isn't that something you got to buy your own insurance? Are you talking about car insurance?
No, we're talking about health insurance, Bobby.
Okay. I didn't get that part. So you're saying that what the big three want to do is to join hands to have a bigger group to get a better rate if by joining hands those three groups of employees would chip in.
Exactly.
What do you think about that?
Well, I was forced to chip in when I worked at the hospital where I worked for many years. You had no alternative. They could control it. It didn't take a union vote. We didn't have a union. You had to contribute. It was still better than to try to buy without a pool, without an organization. If I bought an insurance on my own at that time and went in as an individual, and that's still true today, the only way you get a fair price in your insurance is to go with a group plan. And what the group wants to do, if you have to contribute a little bit rather than have skyrocketing costs where your company can't afford to give you job increases, can't afford to keep employees, you've got to go with the program.
Well, to me, it has merit. I mean, there's no free lunch. We're not guaranteed a free lunch. We're not guaranteed a job. We have an opportunity to show what we can do and to help the companies that we work with. And I'm a company owner, so I'm talking like a company employee because I am.
You have to have an insurance for your guys that fix your cars, I'm sure.
Well, I will tell you this. With regard to insurance, that is a major challenge with small business. So I won't go into that, but I will share
More
with you.
so than the three large corporations, I agree.
Oh, absolutely. It's unbelievable. But I will say that we could now go into another care, but I won't go into another health insurance issue because this is the car show. But I will say that from a personal standpoint, I don't mind paying my fair share, but I understand that the more people you have with one single cause, the better you can drive down the price. I'm not sure that I trust that the insurance companies are working, but I will say this: I had an MRI recently because of an injury sustained on a unnecessary rough, over-the-top boat ride, and I won't go into that on the air at this time, but I had an MRI, and it was a little over $4,000 because I saw the hospital bill.
Yeah, I've had a few, but you can't get the extensive information any other way than an MRI in many problems.
Well, how many people, let's talk about that. How many MRIs? Now we're going to get some medical folks to join in, and maybe that would be a good thing, too. Well, then we'll get automotive. We'll get State Farm or Progressive, Geico. We'll get some of those guys to come and join us and give us, perhaps they'll share with us some inside information that will educate us. Because, Jim, no question about it, your remarks, your personal input, and the reports that you provide are educating not only me, but those who are tuned in. We don't have all the answers, folks, and so up front, it's easier when you categorically say you don't have the answers. But I can tell you, there is, of course, mass production does lower the cost. And I had years ago a dinner with the Bosch folks at SEMA, Specialty Equipment Market Association, every year. That's coming up in November in Las Vegas. And at that time, they had just finished some new module for an automobile industry, and it was $2,600 a box. And I turned to the director of that segment of Bosch, and I said, how do you expect that car buyers are going to afford to buy this safety device at $2,600 a box? He said, Bobby, when we sell 5 million of them, they'll be $260 a box. And I never really thought about that because we were so, face to face at this dinner table, sharing a glass of wine and open thoughts, open dialogue. And I will tell you, it was unbelievably informative and educational at what I learned by hearing what goes on behind the scenes, just like Well, satellite radio, folks thought that was really cool when it came out in 2000. Well, it was in 6 or 5 or 1. 1997 is when that really was designed, and it was early on. So that was not new technology. In fact, CD radio, which is Sirius, CD radio was the name of the company, and XM was another one of those. And then, of course,
now they're combined.
Now they're combined. And I will tell you, and you can quote me if you could go back to that many shows, and we have them online. I categorically said and denied you'll never see the government allow, because then you have a monopoly, XM and Sirius combined, because then they would have a monopoly. And lo and behold, boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, but they're only still producing 5 to 7% of the population, and yet they're still making enough money to keep it feasible.
Well, to that end, radio has morphed in from radio, and radio is informative. Local radio is the best way to go. I'm a national radio broadcast. That's not the best way to go. So I try to be local. And that's why we invite our affiliates, our Car Clinic affiliates, to send us, KGFW in Kearney, Nebraska, they have their Central America Car Show event every year. And we talk about that because that way, folks that are living in Kearney, just like today, folks that are in Detroit, they're listening to this program. Folks that are in Moses Lake, Washington, can hear what's going on categorically and nationally in world news about Buick and China and unions and what have you, but also they get to hear a little bit about what happened down the street and about the Blue Wahoos, which is our fantastic baseball team here. So yeah, it's a combination of all, and that's why I have a set format, and that format is open. It's open to do with automobiles, but one of the things that we don't get on, and what I don't think is that I enjoy doing, is if you call me and say my car has an oil leak, how do I fix it? You cannot fix a car over the airways, and I've said that 100,000 times. I'll say it again. Here's my choice, and here's my goal. And Jim, you see if we've come anywhere near this. And folks, you tell me if we've come anywhere near this. I share with you what my team and I have done in the automotive service and repair business for the past 44 years and still do 50, 60 hours a week every day, so that you can communicate with your local service provider in a more educated fashion, which means basically I give you buzzwords that, just like a lady called last week and I gave her fuel trim. When she's going to go, I said, well, I want you to go to your local dealer. I forget where she was from. New York, wasn't it, Kevin? It was from New York, wasn't that lady?
Yeah, she was from New York.
New York. And I said, go to your service manager at your local dealership and say, check my car. I'm going to agree to pay you an hour's diagnostic testing. Forget diagnostic testing, but make sure you include the fuel trim. And I said, watch the look on his or her face. And so, Jim, that's what Car Clinic is all about. It's sharing of information, and we're in open dialogue, and we're also out of time for this hour. Hey, I want to thank you once again for being a part of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Always great to hear your voice.
Same here, Bobby.
And there you have it. I mentioned last week that I would share with you one more bit of information about a sculpture of the original 64 Mustang, how he found purpose in clay. I will do that on the next hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I want you to know that you can go to our Pinterest board, which is pinterest.com/Bobby Likis, Likis, and look for In the Shop with Bobby Likis. And you'll see pictures of customers' cars in various forms of repair or disrepair, operating table stuff. And I'll be back.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Today's new product spotlight is on Cardone Ultra Premium Calipers. You've spent hours getting your ride ready for a cruise around town. You can see your reflection in your door and eat off the dashboard. But what about those rusty calipers? They just can't withstand the elements. But Cardone Ultra Premium calipers feature an exclusive weatherproof coating that protects against rust and corrosion. Wrapped in a sleek, powder-coated silver finish, Cardone Ultra Premium calipers look sharp and complement all wheel types. Installation is easy and all necessary hardware is provided. Cardone Ultra Premium calipers provide the best of both worlds, premium appearance and superior performance. And now, through November 30, every Cardone Ultra Premium caliper you purchase gives you a chance to win a Ford Mustang GT. Monthly winners will also be chosen to win a $250 Visa gift card. Register and report each product code at CardoneUltra.com. That's CardoneUltra.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Bob, what's new? Last month I'm in Africa when this wildebeest charges me. We butt heads and he's history. After I pull my guide from the jaws of an alligator, I dig into some beef jerky. I get heartburn. I take out my Rolaids as I'm fighting off a wild boar. In under 10 seconds it starts working. Then the boar is bye-bye. My heartburn's gone.
Rolade starts working in under 10 seconds? You expect me to believe that?
It's true. Rolade starts neutralizing acid in under 10 seconds. ROLAIDS spells relief. Use as directed.
While Johnny Kim was getting ready for the first customers of the day, someone else was looking at Larger's face for his growing business. At 3 o'clock, while the Curtis family was watching their daughter's soccer game, someone else was walking a prospective tenant through one of their apartment buildings. And while Carmen Delabar was preparing for a fashion show, someone else met with an appraiser about her investment property. You've got a life. We let you live it. We're realtors. Real estate is our life.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
Well, thank you, Marty White. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. You know, we just finished a 1-hour broadcast, and now here we are for hour 2 of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, which is aired live every Saturday from 10 a.m. Eastern Time till noon Eastern Time. That's 9 to 11 if you're Central Time, and of course you can do the math wherever you're tuned in from, and give us a call at 888 Car Clinic, 888-227-2546. Had a great time. I'll share some information with you that I didn't have an opportunity to in that first hour. We were so busy, and I'll take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by Delphi. Not just quality parts, Delphi quality parts. Connect with Delphi Auto Parts on Facebook for tech tips and some great auto advice. Also, I'm proud to say, and this is one of those last in, last time, hurry up tips. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, where you could win $10,000 to pay off your car or truck. It's the O'Reilly Auto Parts $10,000 payoff sweepstakes powered by Castrol Edge. Visit O'ReillySweeps.com to see official rules, or of course stop by any O'Reilly Auto Parts store face-to-face. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends August 25. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better parts, better prices every day. Don't miss this one. Your calls when I come back.
O'Reilly.
If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing and grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You'll find the brake parts you need from trusted brands like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermo-Quiet at everyday low prices. Play it safe with brake parts from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
The ignition coil plays a key role in starting your vehicle. It's an electrical transformer that creates the spark for the spark plug. But not all ignition coils are the same. Delphi uses leading magnetic designs that ensure the coil's power has an efficient path to the spark plug. And Delphi ignition coils are manufactured to precise specifications, translating to greater part reliability. When it comes time for repair, remember, high standards below the surface. And remember, Delphi. Learn more at delphi.com/am. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Improving ethanol production efficiencies in concert with new farming technologies means the energy benefits of ethanol continue to grow. In recent research, the U.S. Department of Agriculture determined ethanol's energy balance to be 1.7 to 2.3. That's to say, today's ethanol production yields nearly twice as much energy as it took to create the gallon. Also, ethanol's chemical composition means a more complete, cleaner burn of fuel in vehicle engines. Increasing ethanol use in gasoline is directly leading to cleaner air and fewer toxic tailpipe emissions. In 2011, ethanol use reduced tailpipe CO2 equivalent emissions by 25.3 metric tons, equivalent to the emissions of 4 million vehicles. I'm Bobby Likis with 20 facts about ethanol, brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
The following is a consumer alert. If you purchased a Philips Halogena light bulb 2 years ago and it is still working, do not panic. A Philips Halogena bulb is guaranteed to last 2 years. Therefore, your light bulb is not possessed and you are not trapped in a time warp.
Philips, light bulbs that last. Guarantee based on 4 hours average daily use. See package for details.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, here we go with hour 2 of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I talked about this gentleman for quite a while. I don't know, the last couple of 3 programs, and I just haven't had the time due to calls, which thank you. I love talking with you. Let me give you the number so you can get in the queue, because we're going to have an all-caller-driven hour, this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. It's 888, that's 888, not 800, but 888 Car Clinic, 227-2546. It's 888-227-2546. Miss Kim will put you in the queue, and then I will put you on the air. And we have Victor from Washington, who has, as a rule, fantastic questions. And then Miss Kim talking with someone else, and then a few other lines are open. So now's the time to call in. But here we go. I'm going to be talking about Giuliano Zuccato. Here's the story. Giuliano Zuccato was one of 6 clay design modelers who crafted the original 1964 Mustang, whose original model year cars and descendants will be among this year's Dream Cruisers. And that's a Woodward Avenue Dream Cruise, the largest single day, highest attended, 1.5 million people in Detroit. But he might never have picked up sculpturing tools if not for a life-threatening illness. And folks, you want to know how to make lemonade? Listen to this. Zuccato immigrated from Italy to Canada in 1952 when he was 19 years old. Shortly after, he contracted tuberculosis of the bone and was forced to spend 18 months in a full-body cast, immobile, except for his arms. I had some pretty bad times, quote Zuccato, who is now 83. I thought I was losing my mind. It was hell. But things got better when I started sculpturing. After whittling a profile of Abraham Lincoln into a bar of soap, Zuccato's doctor suggested he try clay modeling to pass the time. It worked. Zuccato sculptured the bust of a man in self-hardening clay while flat on his back, staring at a ceiling mirror so he could see what his arms were doing. Imagine this position. Imagine this. After that, he was hooked into a career that saw him shape the first pony car, a sensation then and popular ever since, as well as the other cars such as the Ford GT. I get chill bumps here. Ford GT that swept to victory at the 24-hour Le Mans in 1966. It was destiny, Zuccato said. The sickness brought me to car design. And with that, he says, today I still have the fire in the belly. I put new challenges in front of myself, and I will never stop evolving. I'm not going to sit around on the bench and wait for death. So hats off, and from Bobby Likis and the team here at Bobby Likis Car Clinic to Giuliano Zuccato for overcoming what most of us would have possibly given up on. And I'll close in saying this about this fantastic event. I've seen historical video clips of Lee Iacocca, who were on the podium, and he said that Ford Motor Company was selling so many of those Mustangs when they came out that Ford didn't know what to do with the money. They sold 1 million of those cars the first year. It's unbelievable. Okay, let's go to Washington, and then we'll take your calls at 888-227-2546. Victor, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. You were talking about sending manufacturing of cars and so forth out of the country.
Yes.
And since '94, our trade deficit, we've sent $6 trillion, over $6 trillion. I think it's probably by now, I've seen the figures quite a long time ago, $7 trillion out of the country on the trade deficit. And it takes about, I tried to get the direct figures on money in circulation that we do business with and everything. And it's approximately $680 billion. I used to think it was about $1 trillion, but somewhere back and forth. So we've gone broke basically over 6 times. And every 26 to 30 months we send another $1 trillion out of the country on the trade deficit. And the only reason that our economy hasn't come to a screeching halt, because we would have just run out of money if the government wouldn't keep borrowing and putting the money back into circulation through government programs, and that's why we're going broke. Basically, we are broke. Our government, if it quit borrowing, our whole economy will collapse. That's the point we're at, and the free trade is the big fault of it. And when they dropped the tariffs and made our laborers compete with the $5 a day labor, which we couldn't do, we sent our manufacturing out of the country and we put our workers on welfare, and we were teaching them to be welfare people. And someone that lives on welfare will vote welfare. And a welfare country goes broke, and our money will collapse eventually, because when our debt gets so big that our taxes won't pay the interest on the debt, then we collapse into a total government-controlled. In fact, I don't even understand exactly how bad it will be, but it will be bad, and that's what I see coming. I just wanted to bring some of those figures out. Another thing, we sent 6 million. We lost 6 million manufacturing jobs, and at $50,000 a job, that's $300 billion a year in wages that we don't get in this country, and that's basically why we had the '08 crash. Those people that were making good money couldn't pay their mortgages and so forth, and the money wasn't recirculating in this country. And a recirculating dollar, there's a 10-to-1 multiplier, and even though the government's borrowing and putting a lot of money into welfare like they have to do to keep the people living, if the money doesn't leave the country, we still have it, and we can still pay our bills. But when the money leaves the country, that's all debt money on you and me, the taxpayer, then we don't have it, and it's gone. and our government keeps borrowing from China, and China and Japan held 40% of our debt, and so forth. So to me, it looks real bad, and Trump seems to have the right idea. He says we have to bring tariffs back in. The tariffs is the only thing that makes manufacturing profitable in this country.
You know, you stir a lot of emotions in my head, and I want to recall years ago on a car clinic, I met a gentleman named, personally face-to-face after interviewing him on air, Andrew Card. Andy Card, a fellow and was president at the time of the American Automobile Association, which went defunct when Chrysler was sold to Mercedes. And so I had the opportunity to meet Andrew Card face-to-face, but my first real conversation with Mr. Card was he had just returned from, and I think, if memory serves me, Victor, Japan or China, one of the two. It was where our president, our then president, who was Bill, was proposing 100% tariff. So maybe it was against China. Now, obviously, you shouldn't propose 100% tariff, because that's like walking into your boss and saying, I want a raise. I deserve, I've been here a long time, and I'm not only doing my job, I'm adding value, so I deserve a raise. Well, let's talk about it. Okay, I want a 100% raise. Well, I mean, that ain't going to happen. So in that vein, for me and my limited knowledge of politics, I always felt that maybe that was just talk, the 100%, because it's impossible. So I invited Andrew Card, and I was really concerned as to, well, how am I going to interview? What questions am I going to ask this gentleman? As it turned out, I admire and literally adore this man, and I haven't talked with him in years, Andy Card. But the first thing that he said, he had just returned from either China or Japan. I think it was China, and he said, in the Bostonian, they're talking about, they checked some of our tire chains, which, as you know, we don't use. Many states have outlawed chains because they're rough on the road. He said, he says, well, what do you think? How did it go? He said, well, let me tell you what they did. And then he proceeded to just nail them and on the air. And I said a couple of things there that were pretty, not raunchy, but certainly things that I normally wouldn't say. And, but basically what they did was they jacked a car up, they put chains on it, they eased the jack down until the tires barely touched the concrete, and then they drove the car in its place, running the chains until the chains obviously wore out because they were spinning on concrete. This car is not moving now. And then when they broke, they said these chains went 338 miles before they collapsed. That was a true story that he witnessed while he was there, and he came back, and the way he talked about him was unbelievable. And I met with him. Then I went to his office in Detroit, and I said, well, what do you do here? Because you see, the presidents of the big three, Ford, GM, Chrysler, would all meet in his beautiful, wild meeting conference room with a conference table, Victor, that must have been 30 feet long. And what Andrew Card told me, it was very interesting and telling, and it speaks to what you were talking about, and I'll share that with you after the break. Victor, you hold, and folks, don't touch your dial. Here's an email from a car clinic listener. David writes, what's the amber light on my dash? It looks like a cork pointing at an angle to a picture on the side of the car. This light has been on and off for about a year now, and I think it's time I check it out. Well, David, no time like the present. The light indicates a detected failure that could allow gasoline fumes to evaporate into the air, costing you money in lost fuel and polluting the air. Most common failure that trips the light? A small evap leak, or in other words, loose fuel cap. Besides being tight, the cap must also be in good condition. Fuel caps don't last forever, and poor quality caps don't work well from the beginning. Stant makes a large line of fuel caps that will last a very long time and ensure proper sealing of the system. Stant fuel caps are the only aftermarket caps to include all the safety features of the original equipment cap. Visit stant.com or ask your local parts store for a Stant gas cap by name. From the Car Clinic inbox, Jason in Dallas writes, Bobby, the battery in my 2012 Honda just died. I hear you talking about Power Frame. Is this a battery you recommend? And where can I get it? Jason, Power Frame isn't actually a battery brand. Power Frame is the type of grid technology inside select automotive batteries. Why are grids so important? The positive grid provides the energy necessary to start your car, and corrosion of this grid is the number one cause of battery failure. Power Frame grids are different because the patented grid pattern is optimized for consistent and superior starting power. The manufacturing method and material composition used to produce Power Frame grids result in increased durability and corrosion resistance. In fact, they're 66% more durable than other grid designs like book mold or expanded metal. You can find Power Frame grid technology inside Autocraft Gold and Platinum AGM and CarQuest Silver, Gold, and AGM batteries at your local Advanced Auto Parts and CarQuest stores. For more about Power Frame grid technology, drive to powerframe.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Commercials are more effective if you use real people. So on the line is Angie McPhee, a Geico Auto Insurance customer who saved over $300. This is not an actor we hired to play Angie McPhee. It's the Angie McPhee. So in your own words, tell us, are you Angie McPhee?
Yes.
There. Unmistakable proof that Geico customers are real and save money. In 15 minutes, you could save 15%. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
Some original thinking by Starbucks barista Frank Botex.
What I love most is getting customers to smile in the morning. Starbucks is just a place to come and relax, to kick your feet back. I mean, it's a second home. Starbucks is now in a grocery store, and what better way to just become your own personal barista at home? You go to the grocery store, pick up some coffee, take it home, let the aroma take over your body.
Your favorite Starbucks coffee, at grocery, at home, at last.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you just tuned in, we've had some really exciting conversations today and reporting of news. And the conversation and discussion that I'm having right now is with Victor in Washington State, who's talking about economy and out-of-country manufacturing and the financial effect that has on our country. And it's all about the news that Jim, our Car Clinic reporter, called in earlier and talked about General Motors making a Buick in China and then importing that Buick from China to the United States for U.S. highways. And that would save them money. Obviously, that would put some people out of work. So having said that, Victor, at the break, I was talking about meeting Andrew Card, who was also chief of the White House staff with President, and I forget which president that was, but it was Bush, I think. But anyway, Andrew Card is the gentleman's name, and I was most impressed with this person. And I asked him face to face, just the two of us in a room. I said, Andy, I said, help me to understand what goes on in these board meetings. And he said, well, every 6 weeks we have the president from Ford, GM, and Chrysler that comes in with their cronies. And that's his word, not mine. With their cronies that come in and they sit around the table and we talk about the American manufacturing, what Ford's doing, what Chrysler's doing. I said, you mean they're going to share what they're doing? He said, well, they don't share what they don't want others to know, but they've got to share enough to pique the interest of the other chiefs of staff. And so with that, I said, well, why don't they just send their individuals? He said, because they're afraid they might miss something. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. It's what goes on behind closed doors. And then he, as the representative of and president of the American Automobile Manufacturers Association, of course, he led the pack. Just like with the Renewable Fuels Association, Bob Dineen is the CEO and one of the most passionate, if not as passionate, men that I know with regard to ethanol. And you mentioned dollars that we were shipping offshore. Without ethanol, we would be sending $1 billion with a B dollars a day buying more crude, because that's what is offset by the use of ethanol in this country. And not only are we keeping those jobs and creating those jobs in rural America, these are facts, but we're also reducing our dependency on foreign oil. So what is not to like? And for me, from an engine standpoint, forget the politics, put that aside if you possibly can, just for a minute. From an engineering standpoint, I know what the clean burning, high octane effects of ethanol blended fuel bring to the table, and it's all a plus. It is all a plus. And to prove that, you look at the down-speeding, downsize engines that the EcoTech, the EcoBoost, all the new Eco engines that are coming out, they're based on higher compression, smaller engines that turn fewer RPM and produce more torque, and torque is where the MPG comes from, and fewer emissions. Those are facts. And so as we look at all of this evidence, why then would we not go from E10 to 15 to 20 to 30 to E85? And in that order, you've got old school. So how much, Victor, your opinion, and because that's what we're sharing here, in your opinion, how would you change the direction, and what would you do if you had either the whip or a magic wand?
Well, you see, the allegiance, when we went to a global economy, they call it, the allegiance went from being a true American allegiance to the United States. It went to the global economy. So the car manufacturers and all our businessmen and the big manufacturers, they look around the country, or around the world, they want to sell around the world, and they want to make as much profit as they can, of course. So when they knew that if we dropped the tariffs and they could use the basically slave labor and sell back in here just under our cost of production, they would make billions and billions of dollars, which they have now. But their allegiance, to do that, you have to destroy America, basically, because you have to send our manufacturing, and they transferred our wealth out of the country to the foreigners and to themselves, because they became foreign businesses. And the foreign businesses, they have to become a partner with the Chinese government. So they made a deal that the Chinese government would get rich, and they would get rich by transferring our money and our wealth, because we were the richest country in the world. The rest of the countries, because of their crooked and bad governments, couldn't make money. Their people were depressed because of their bad governments. And instead of changing their governments, the United States trying to change their governments to a good government, we went corrupt, and our politicians were bought off. They dropped the tariffs, and we transferred our wealth all around the world now, so to the point that we're broke. But the allegiance, what I'm pointing out, is the allegiance of business is not to the United States. They're not true Americans. Their allegiance is to the global economy, and they want to bring us under a global government. And they're breaking us to do it, and we're going to be a third nation or whatever type country, where the people are going to be under a socialist dictatorship, and we're going to be very poor, and the government's going to tell us where to work, what to do, what to eat, what books to read, what religion to have, and whatever, because when the government's taking care of the people, and if the people do not have work that pays their bills, they can put money enough away for their old age so they're independent, and they don't have to have a government welfare program to take care of them in their old age and so forth. They have to make a living wage, and the money can't be collapsing. The value of the money has to hold, has to be a sound money, because the dollar you make today, if it's worth 10 cents, by the time you're an old person, your savings are destroyed, and then the government has to take care of you. And the government can't take care of you. The government has to create the money out of nothing. Fiat money, that's what it is. It's just figures in a computer. And at that point, and they're always dropping and collapsing because of debt, the people become totally dependent upon the government, and you have a socialist dictatorship. And that, I don't want that. That's never worked. It never does work. The people go to starvation, and finally there's rebellions, there's wars, there's trouble in the streets. The streets are unsafe, and the whole thing is corrupt. And we have to get back to true Americanism that's basically based on the Bible, and we have to get back to being America has to show people and the other nations how to live. we can't join them and everybody go corrupt like we are now. We have a corrupt government, and I don't like to say all this, but I believe it has to be said, and I don't think anybody's hardly saying it.
I don't like to hear all this, but I'm not embarrassed, and I'm proud that you're on the air saying this. This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic, and yet we have we're talking, and in the queue we have Eric, who has a mouse who died, and we're going to hear about that. That's going to be a lot of fun, folks. And also we've got Paul from New York with a with a Prius. So we are going to talk cars, but in essence we are, Victor. Thank you so much, because we're talking about what drives the economy. And I'll just say this, and then we'll move on to other calls. And I really appreciate your input and your kind words. And I hear you when you say I don't like to say all these and make all these statements. But in the big scheme of things, what is wrong with a farmer that sells ethanol made from corn that was field corn and not made for human consumption, and ends up a third of that same corn that's used for ethanol, and that farmer is now successful, and a third of that corn that's used for ethanol goes back to feedstocks, and that keeps jobs and keeps our money on our shores. What is wrong with that picture? Nothing. It's right with that picture, and yet I'll guarantee you there are thousands of people tuned in right now who would say, oh, that stuff's bad. That stuff. Well, folks, let me tell you something. You bring me proof of any bad engine damage repair. You bring me records that prove clinical tests. That's what you look for. And then I'll close, and then we'll move on. But Victor, I want to share this with you. I watched the Shark Tank. And I watch Hirschwag, Robert, who is an immigrant, and I watch what they tell these people. And, Mr. Wonderful, you either love him or hate him, and he is a rude individual, and maybe that's the role he plays on air, who knows. But the bottom line is, without fail, categorically, whenever someone comes in and their cost, what does it cost to make that widget? Well, you can you can send that overseas, and you can get your cost down, and then you can be successful. And they had one gentleman on there, and I forget where he was from, North Carolina or somewhere, that his family had been into woodworking, and he wanted to build what he was building using jobs and making jobs and he was passionate. He was almost in tears, and it really got to me a bit. But the bottom line, he said, I want, and then Robert says, well, here's all I can say about that. Send the jobs offshore. You want to be successful and help the people in the United States, send the jobs offshore, build a successful company that is housed right here in the U.S., and you will have done your job, and you can then hire more people to put to work. But you can't afford to start your company and make cash and make profits because your cost of goods will be too high. So is that a catch-22? And that's not a question for anyone to ask. It's just I thought I'd throw that out there.
Every man, woman, and child in the United States is going into debt between $3 and $4 a day on the trade deficit, and every time a person loses their jobs and they go on welfare, that costs us not only you're buying the cheaper good out of the store, not too much cheaper, but some cheaper from China and so forth, but then you have to pay taxes to take care of the person that you paid or that you put out of work by sending his job out, and by the time you've lost money, you think you're saving money, but actually you're losing big money and destroying the country. But people don't realize that because they see it's something cheaper on the shelf.
Well, I thank you, my friend, for your input and for your words and your honesty, your candor, and for always tuning in from Washington. And I look forward to hearing from you again. It's a dialogue that will go on for some time. And coming up, we just may have an opportunity to make some changes in the leadership. And I am not into politics. I know nothing about politics except to say I've heard, and I've been to Tallahassee on 5 different trips, one time on an ethanol subject, and I watched the back and forth statements between the yay and nay of this particular. And it was an ethanol-based event. And I watched a politician make statements that were untrue, but he was great at volleying. And it was like a volley court more than it was about talking about facts. And that part didn't work for me, Victor. It didn't work, and it doesn't work today, because when I talked to the engine director for Earnhardt Childress Racing, He says there's no hardware changes when they went from straight gasoline to 30 to 15% gasoline. No hardware. Anyway, thanks, Victor, for calling, folks. I'm going to take a short break. You take a breath. I'll come back with Eric. This Tire Maintenance Minute is brought to you by General Tire. Anywhere is possible with a Grabber line of light truck tires born from competition. Thoughts of nitrogen probably take you back to high school chemistry. But did you know nitrogen-filled tires offer benefits their air-filled counterparts can't? Nitrogen-filled tires maintain a more constant pressure, as pure nitrogen is not as affected by ambient air temperature swings as is the mixed gas air we usually pump in tires. Constant pressure means better handling, less tire wear, and increased fuel economy. Additionally, since nitrogen suspends less moisture, the internally exposed part of your wheel is less susceptible to corrosion. Drawbacks? Not every repair shop has nitrogen. Another consideration is price. While air is free, nitrogen typically costs between $3 and $10 per tire. Drive to GeneralTire.com to learn more about the Grabber line of light truck tires. Anywhere is possible with Grabber. And for more details, visit GeneralTire.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
You can call them used. You can call them previously driven. You can call them anything you want. The point is somebody, maybe even a dozen somebodies, owned the car before you did. And before you put down your hard-earned dollars for the car, you deserve to know exactly where it's been. Get a vehicle history report from Carfax.com. They'll give you the real history of any used car. Visit CARFAX.com or ask your dealer for a Carfax report. Don't buy a used car without Carfax.
I, Dennis Walker, pledge allegiance to the roof. I know it'll be clean. I know it will be comfortable. And I know that if the phone rings when I'm in the shower, I can just let it ring. For I have voicemail. Red Roof Inn, one room, under budget, with free cable and local calls for all.
98% of Red Roof guests are so satisfied with their visit, they plan to come back. Now that's not just loyalty, that's allegiance. For reservations, call 800-RED ROOF.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
I think I need another break to take another break and another break and another break, but welcome back. What a fantastic program today. You never know it was a car show, but by the same token, we are talking about automobiles and manufacturing of cars and safety. And to that end, I want to share with you, and Eric, I'm going to come to you, so you be ready. Recently, Delphi, and you've heard me talk about Delphi quality parts, Delphi's team of engineers just completed an autonomous driving car. The car was named Roadrunner, by the way, nearly 3,400 miles cross country. Think about that. A trip, this is the first of its kind, and the team and the car traveled nearly 3,400 miles, ending in New York City from California, making this America's first and longest coast-to-coast drive by an autonomous driving vehicle. And this car will make its debut at CES 2015, which is a Consumer Electronics show. We won't be going this year, but we broadcast 7 years in a row out there, and yet it was consumer electronics. It wasn't cars, but yet it's grown into more and more and more cars because of the connection between your dash and so on and so forth with the connectivity of the cars. Well, anyway, this car, the vehicle, it's well equipped with 6 long-distance radars, 4 short-range radars, 3 vision-based cameras, 6 LiDARs, a localizing system, intelligent software, algorithms, and a full suite of advanced drive assistance systems. You can continue to follow the Delphi car on Twitter, and you can at Delphi Auto, and using hashtag Delphi Drive. And I'm proud to say that in our car clinic service, pre-repair, automotive repair, and service shop, we use Delphi parts in our customers' cars because we know the quality is Delphi quality. Now we'll take a call from Kansas. Eric, you're a patient man. I thank you for your patience, and I want you to tell our listeners why you called and what your dilemma is, because I don't know if I have the heart to.
Well, I got a 2001 Pontiac Grand Prix that the heater fan started making noise, and then a few days later it starts stinking like dead mouse. So apparently there's a mouse in the vent. So I'm trying to figure out either how to spray something in the vents to kill the odor, or where to easiest place to disassemble to try to find the critter.
Oh. Well, here's I feel for you. I've had that happen in my building. We have our service garage is 15,000 square feet, and it started off at 5,000. And then we made 3 additions over the years, and to 5 to 10. Then now it's 15,000. And so we have walls next to walls, and we have had on occasion from a ditch just adjacent to our building a rat that we have bait out that they went in the wall and died. Of course, the only thing you can do in that respect, because you don't know where it is just wait it out, and it'll eventually go away. I wouldn't do that in my car, because the car, your wall is you can take it apart, and although it's limited as to which part you take apart, the first thing, because we know one thing, we know that the animal was in the fan cage, the squirrel cage, so we know that's the first part. So we can assume. And, I hate to assume, but we can assume that for the most part, the parts and pieces of that animal, and by the way, your squirrel cage blower motor is not a blender, and so it's not going to totally. It did enough damage to kill this animal which moved away and died. It's not a blender, so you don't have multiples of pieces, although there's no doubt debris in the system. So here's the first thing to do, and the easiest. I'm trying to look at the least invasive, because you got to pay somebody, and you got an 01 car, and if I tell you that you got to take the whole dash apart and it's going to cost you $1,500, you'll say thanks and hang up, and you won't do anything, except go to your next door neighbor and get his opinion. So having said that, and I'm assuming that that's what you would do, as is most often. So here's what I would do, responsibly and inexpensively. I would have a local service provider remove the fan motor, blower motor with cage, because that gives you the single most largest access to look and peek inside. And then you can use mirrors and other borescopes and see what's in there. And hey, they may find the remnants of the animal in one major area, because there is one major trunk to where the air, how a blower motor works. You got an end, you got, just like at your house, it's a square box in a house, it's not in a car, but it's the same design. You got a filter, a cabin filter, you've got a blower motor, and you got the evaporator, or the heater core, and the air goes through. So what I do is I'd pull the blower motor and inspect that, and then I would have a cabin clean air procedure performed, and here's how they do that. And we have kits for that, and service garages have kits for that, Eric. You spray, using this foam cleaner, the evaporator core, which is, for the most part, the heater core, the evaporator core, all of that HVAC, you spray that with cleaner, and then it drains out the drain. In your case, before you do that, you're going to have to pull the cage and look in there, because you got a larger piece that's not going to drain out. But in order to get the odor out and restore this car to a driver position, that's what has to be done. Pull the motor, see what that information that gives you, put the motor back in after you've cleaned everything with vacuum and that, then do a cabin air procedure, which is a foam cleaner procedure, last but not least, Eric, at the very end of the day, and you're probably going to shortcut and do this just all by itself, but that's not what I would do. But it's the last thing that I'm advising. Take a pan, a tin pan, a pie pan. That's what I'm trying to say. Take a pie pan and pour lacquer thinner in it. You ever wrecked a car or driven a freshly painted or been around a paint and body shop where you have those vapors of the solvents coming off the paint? You know what I'm talking about?
I've smelled fresh paint. Yeah.
Okay. So you put lacquer thinner in a pan, empty pie pan, and leave it overnight with the windows up, and that will help to absorb the odor that this dead animal's left in your 01 Pontiac. And with that, I wish you good luck. And now we'll go from Kansas to New York. Paul, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I know you got to be a patient man. So, and folks, you can get in 888-227-2546. Paul, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. So what do you think?
Well, I've got about 240,000 miles on my 06 Prius. The computer, of course, has treated that engine very gently. I drive speed limit plus 1 mile per hour all the time.
Yes, sir.
I watch my gas mileage very closely, and the car is being treated very gently, the engine. But now it's starting to sound like the valve train is extremely loose. When I first bought the car, you couldn't even tell when the gasoline engine turned on.
Right.
Now it sounds like a rattle trap.
There are technical service bulletins for Prius engines, and I say this, I'm glad you called. And folks, now's a good time for you to get in, 888-227-2546. We had and I don't remember the mileage, but let's say 60 to 90,000. Somewhere, it was less than 100. So it came in for a noise. And and that noise was as I remember, I recall, I'd have to check with Brennan, who's our general manager, it was a belt or a tensioner problem. But in doing so, we did what was prudent and a practice that we have put into play here in our service facility. We looked on our databases for any technical service bulletins relevant to the Prius. And lo and behold, that particular car specifically had some additional parts that needed to be replaced, one of which was I'm thinking a water pump or an adjacent pulley of some kind that was right there. You had to take another couple of bolts out, and there again, I'm being vague because I don't remember, but I do know that it added quite a bit to our estimate. But it was like doing open heart surgery, and you do one bypass, and when you wake up, the doctor says, "Oh, by the way, Paul, we got to go back in there in 6 weeks because you needed 2 bypass." Well, really? Why didn't you do it? So, being prudent, we gave the customer the option. But what ended up, the customer says, "Well, I get this job done cheaper somewhere else, cheaper for less money somewhere else." And this was a Prius. I was really surprised to hear that because, as you are, the Prius owners that have come, and this was a new customer, the Prius owners that have frequented our service facility want us to perform whatever services we deem necessary for the longevity and life of that car and to make it roadworthy. And that's what we live by. And we follow it just like it was my car. And so I said all that to say that what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to, when we're finished our conversation, ask Kevin to put you back on hold, and I want you to send me via email the mileage, a description of the noise, and your VIN number so that I can search our database during the week, and I will send back to you any pertinent information that I get relevant to your engine, because here's the great news about technology that we have in cars today. The cars are safer, get better gas mileage, and we've talked all about that. Also, GM just recalled some 4,000 cars because they had 6. Well, this is a major point here to understand. They had 6 warranties of airbag control, only 6, nobody hurt, and then they had 3 of those they had to reprogram. And I may not have the story exactly, but here's the point. There is an engineer at GM who notified higher management of these particular warranties, and what they learned was that during the steaming process of fitting the seats, the steaming process left the seat, is that with regard to airbag, this was a passenger seat, it left the seat damp, and the programming, when they programmed the final car, was affected, and when that seat dried completely out, the airbag monitoring system was not correct any longer because the resistance was different. I said all that to say that the technologies involved and the fact that we've had so many airbags, so you've got the larger management and the high level management listening to the lower echelon guys to help save lives. To that end, we have scores and hundreds and millions of technical service bulletins, and I will surely look in our database and see what's relevant to your particular automobile. Is your car in a shop right now?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I drive my cars. I don't treat them super gently myself, but I've only owned 7 cars in 50 years.
Wow.
And this is the 7th. I don't get rid of a car if it has less than 200,000 miles on it. I started with a 69 Pontiac, had 200,000 miles on that. When I got rid of it, I had a 77 and an 84 Accord.
Those are great cars.
83 Caprice wagon.
Well, a quick question, just a quick question, and then I'm going to move on. With your Pontiac, with a couple 100,000 miles, how many timing chains did you put in that Pontiac? Do you remember?
1.
1. You know, that was a weak point of that engine because they used at that time plastic teeth on the aluminum gear. And
yeah, I changed the gears to all metal gears when I did that.
Yeah, you spur up good memories of those classic type days cars. Paul, thank you so much for your. So let me put Kevin. Paul, thank you for your call. I'm going to put you back on hold, and then Kim will pick up so you don't go anywhere. And Kim is going to pick up and take your email address and give you mine so that we can connect. And now let's take a quick call from Mike in New York. And Mike, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for holding.
Thanks for taking my call, Bobby.
You're welcome, sir.
Good. My question is, my mom's car, 2006 Buick LaCrosse, 6-cylinder. She lets the car sit for definitely more than 3 days. Battery's dead.
Right.
Even if you put a new battery in it, it goes dead. You know, and the technicians are telling me, well, that car just has a lot of draw on the computers and everything. It's typical for that car.
Well,
and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
What do you do if she travels to an airport and leaves it there for a week?
I hear you. Here's what I use on the cars that I don't drive often, and I have 3 vehicles that I drive. I don't drive often. I use it's called Extreme, and it is a battery computer controlled keep alive. It keeps the battery healthy, but it doesn't charge, and it has like pinging a computer. It has a little pinging device that tests the battery state of health, and if the battery needs charging, it charges it, but if it doesn't, it doesn't, so it doesn't ruin a battery because it's a battery tender. And it's called an Extreme, and you can go, so it's X not with an E, but Extreme. So I want you to go online and look for that. You can buy that Extreme at O'Reilly Auto Parts and use it as a plug and play. Having said that, I want you to call me next week because I have more information and not enough time to share with you properly. Folks, tune in next week. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Today's new product spotlight is on Denso's Iridium TT spark plugs. Your vehicle's spark plugs deliver the electric current necessary to ignite the fuel that runs your engine. But not all spark plugs are the same. Denso is proud to introduce the Iridium TT spark plug. The Iridium TT's two tips, the twin tip, allow the spark plug to create the largest spark concentration and explosion for more power, superior fuel economy, and fewer emissions. And fewer emissions help protect our environment, while fewer visits to the pump save you money. Denso's Iridium TT spark plug is designed to last beyond 100,000 miles. The patented formula features the highest iridium concentration of any spark plug and outperforms in the most severe engine temperatures, resisting oxidation and voltage wear. Denso has the tradition of innovation. Using their OE expertise, Denso products are manufactured to give you the right part and the right fit the first time, every time. Learn more about Denso's Iridium TT spark plugs at densott.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P. Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning.